here. Okay, and set the timer. All right. I had a few notes that I already omitted looking at. I do want to mention that we are recording today's webinar so that we can share this with those trainers who are unable to attend. So again, please mute your audio to help minimize background noise, but don't forget to unmute to ask questions or add comments along the way. And with that, folks, I would like to encourage each and every one of you to interject, interrupt. I don't see it as being rude in any way. I welcome the opportunities to address your questions, your concerns, or to hear your comments or input to the various topics or areas that I will be previewing today or during today's webinar. So thank you again for participating. Adriana, I'd like to ask if you wouldn't mind monitoring the chat and responding accordingly, because I'm going to go ahead and just minimize my control panel so that I have full view of my screen. So if you wouldn't mind, that would be great.
Not a problem. I'll, if you have any questions and you want to put them in the chat box, I will keep the window open, and then Dawn, I'll let you know if there are any questions.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Again, since I started the recording late, again, good morning to those of you on the West Coast, good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast, and good day to all of you in between joining us for today's workshop on going live with CASAS online. And so with that, I'll go ahead and get into today's session. And I believe I am, let me just double check here. Yes, I've unpaused my screen. Okay. The best place to begin with the implementation process is on the CASAS website, from either product overviews or training and support. And actually, let me go back for just a minute. The whole reason in presenting this workshop, folks, as state and national certified trainers who are, of course, very proficient in CASAS implementation in general, we would like to give you the opportunity to enhance your expertise and share, as you're working with programs and to help guide programs, share with programs the basic steps for implementing CASAS eTest online, and then help guide programs through the implementation process. And it is rather straightforward. There are many pieces of the puzzle, and once the puzzle is put together, that's when programs are ready to go live online. And so our purpose here is to go through these steps with you so that you have a good understanding of the steps. And in the end, we'll actually invite you to go through the steps yourself and to experience firsthand what local programs experience when they choose to implement CASAS eTest online or transition from paper to web-based testing. Okay, so with that, I'll go back to the CASAS website. And I didn't put together a PowerPoint presentation because everything is here already available on the CASAS website. So you can get to the overview on how to implement CASAS eTest online, either from product overviews or training and support. I'm actually choosing to go access it through training and support here. And from the left sidebar, eTest Online Help. From there, you see a lot of links here, in addition to help documentation displayed on this web page, which includes a transitioning to HTML fax, and I'll bring reference to that a little bit later in today's webinar. There is a copy of a CASAS online implementation PowerPoint overview that you are welcome to download and preview. And then there are steps to access the CASAS online system, and I'll talk about that also later in the webinar here. But on the, excuse me, I'm trying to catch a cold and trying not to at the same time. So this is the most current help documentation here, but this isn't the heart of today's meeting. The meeting actually is primarily will start here at the how to implement overview. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that how to implement overview. And this simply gives a brief overview of the information that individuals would encounter when accessing these more detailed or links with more detailed information. Okay, so when you are guiding programs through the implementation process, this is the first place that you should take local programs. And even if the subject comes up during a training, a CASAS implementation training session, you have a resource that you'll be familiar with to go to on the spot if you have internet connection during that training session. So here, we're going to talk briefly about system compatibility, facility and verification, staff preparedness, and test administration inventory. So I'll go ahead and click over here to pricing and ordering, but before I do, I just want to emphasize that the CASAS online system uses two applications. CASAS eTest Online is one of those two applications. The other application is TOPS Pro Enterprise Online. The two applications share one common database. So when a program chooses to transition to web-based testing or to come on board with CASAS for the first time with web-based testing, they are actually getting two applications. So we're just simply referring to that as the CASAS online system, CASAS eTest Online together with TOPS Pro Enterprise Online. And I'm pretty certain that most of you are fully aware of TOPS Pro Enterprise Online as the data management application to track program and student outcomes and generate reports. CASAS eTest Online, in a nutshell, is simply the testing application. It has no reporting capability. So this is why programs, when they implement the online system, get both applications, because it is TOPS Pro Enterprise Online, where they will manage their data and generate reports, as well as track student and program outcomes. Now, programs have two options for implementing the CASAS online system, and we refer to these as basic or enhanced. And so we have I'm going to actually drop down here to report to talk just briefly about the difference. So when someone chooses to implement web-based testing, they have the choice or the option to choose basic implementation of the CASAS online system or enhanced implementation of the CASAS online system. And so the best way to understand that is to open the assessment and database management features, which gives a side-by-side comparison of basic access versus enhanced access. Now, basic access, in just very briefly, basic access supports student or client level implementation with purchase of web test units alone. So there is no need to purchase a TOPS Pro Enterprise license. Enhanced implementation supports student, client, program, class, and accountability level implementation with not only with purchase of web test units, but also purchase of a TOPS Pro Enterprise license that also includes annual support plus student record management fees to cover data access, maintenance, security, backup, and archive. So I would say, Marty, what would you say? There's probably about maybe about a 50-50 split nationwide, basic versus enhanced.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. And there are some agencies that, for whatever reason, only use TOPS Pro Enterprise because they're using some other testing mechanism. But yeah, probably about 50-50.
Yeah. So there are various various models for implementation, but I pretty much just between basic and enhanced. So we can talk about that in a little more clearly in just a moment. But actually, and please don't hesitate to ask questions along the way. But essentially, we ask programs to refer to this section, features and reports, or this section here, to help them best determine which online implementation would meet their program needs. Okay, and so I don't know if I had already said this, but generally enhanced implementation requiring purchase of a TE license is more so if programs have an accountability component to them. But enhanced access or enhanced implementation allows access to all available menus and data functions that the online system offers, whereas basic implementation has access to a limited amount of menus and limited data functions in the CASAS online system. Okay, so I hope that helps to understand when a program is implementing the CASAS online system that they have a choice, basic or enhanced, and that you have a general idea of the difference between each one. So that brings us, let's go to pricing and ordering, because this might bring up a few more questions. Now, programs may submit an order for online test administration, and we refer to those as web test units, or actually the acronym is WTUs, web test units. And so they are purchasing web test units. They can do so very easily through online ordering or with a purchase order, or submit an order form. Now, WTUs do not expire, and think of them as virtual answer sheets that apply to any test, any form, and any level. The minimum order for WTUs, I'll go ahead and just click on order now. The minimum order for WTUs is 100. Now, California WIOA Title II funded programs are provided WTUs through the California Department of Ed. However, an order must be placed just the same as any other testing materials. And they can, California funded WIOA Title II funded programs may place orders online or use one of the California ordering guides. Let's go back. And let's see, I did mention WTUs do not expire. Does anyone have any questions about the pricing and ordering? And Adriana, I'm relying on you to relay any questions.
Yeah, we're good in the chat box.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right. Oh, and I'll just mention just one other thing too. Often we'll get asked, well, how many WTUs should be ordered? Well, again, remember they are like virtual answer sheets. So if a local program is administering a pre-test and they're measuring progress and plan to administer post-test in one modality, that's 2 WTUs. If they're assessing 2 modalities per student, both pre and post testing, then that's 4 WTUs. Programs can order the minimum WTUs, and they can always add WTUs at any time throughout a program year. All right, now we spoke about features and reports, and I'm going to bring up this document here, Basic Reports with CASAS eTest Online. Now, please don't be mistaken thinking that CASAS eTest Online gives the ability to generate these reports. But remember my mentioning about the difference between basic and enhanced implementation. Basic implementation, remember, supports student and client level implementation with a purchase of WTUs alone. So when you think about it, folks, programs can get up and running with the CASAS Online system for only, I believe it's what, WTUs 100, it's $285 a WTU. So for only $285, the programs can implement, have basic implementation of the CASAS Online system. And that is quite amazing when you think that they also get access, basic access to TOPS Pro Enterprise Online. And that's where they have available to them the individual skills profile reports, student competency performance reports. They can reprint personal score reports that display at the end of a student testing in CASAS eTest Online, a student test summary, the next assigned test, and then to monitor your web test units through eTest administration. Actually, there's another one, Marty, I need to add there is WTU balance on there as well. So these are basic reports included with basic implementation. Okay. And then, of course, enhanced implementation includes those reports in addition to all of the other accountability type reports, such as data integrity. It also includes content standards reports, learning gains reports, and so forth. So it's quite involved. Now let's see. Let me look at my notes here. Now, I'll just finish up with this on the features and reports. Basic and enhanced implementation of the CASAS Online system, in other words, eTest Online together with TOPS Pro Enterprise Online, covers agency-wide implementation across multiple sites and campus locations. So we get asked often, how many sites can I have? How many locations can I have? Well, folks, it's unlimited. Okay. We also get asked, how many users can we have? Well, again, that is unlimited. Local programs have full control over who they allow access to CASAS, their data container for CASAS eTest Online, as well as their online data container for TOPS Pro Enterprise Online. Okay. So we do the initial setup for local programs. And then once we turn over those initial login credentials to a local program, then it's up to them to manage users as well as manage their data and so forth. Now, California WIOA Title II funded programs, like I mentioned earlier, are provided WTUs at no cost because it's covered by the California contract. California WIOA Title II funded programs are also provided with enhanced implementation of the CASAS Online system, and that's provided to them through the California Department of Ed. Let's move on to system compatibility if we don't have any questions. Right now, until June 30th, CASAS actually has 2 CASAS eTest Online applications running simultaneously. The original CASAS eTest Online application, we're referring to that now as the Silverlight application. And for those of you not familiar with Silverlight, it's a plug-in to the Windows Microsoft operating system. Now, that probably sounds a bit technical, but we have the Silverlight application compared to our newest CASAS eTest Online application, referred to as the HTML application. That's the newest application. And we are encouraging programs now to begin the transition from Silverlight to HTML, and they have until June 30 to make that final transition. When July 1 comes, the Silverlight application will no longer function, and the HTML application then is what they need to be using from that point forward. So the CASAS online system it has been out, I believe, gosh, I've lost track. I think we're in our 5th year of the CASAS online system having been initially released. So we have quite a lot of programs that have used the Silverlight application and are in that transition process. Now, the HTML application, the reason why we came out with a new application is that Microsoft alone is no longer going to support their Silverlight plugin, which is required for that Silverlight application. And so this is why CASAS has come out with a new, greatly enhanced CASAS eTest Online application. So the HTML application may be used with any modern web browser. Windows 10 is required for PCs and laptops, and Chromebooks and iPads require installation of the eTest Online app. So now, folks, not only can you deliver CASAS eTest Online excuse me, on a desktop computer or a laptop running a Microsoft Windows operating system, but you can now also expand to, say, mobile labs with Chromebooks and iPads. However, they do require an additional setup, which is very quick, straightforward, and that's called the eTest Online app. Now, Macintosh computers, you may know of some programs that have Mac labs. Well, the CASAS eTest Online can, in fact, run on a Mac computer, provided the Mac computer is configured to operate using a Windows operating system via Apple's Boot Camp utility. So many programs that do have Mac labs that are manage those Mac machines on a network, there is a high chance that those machines have what they call a dual boot system, so they run in either Mac or a Windows. Again, that gets a little bit technical, but if you have any follow-up questions, I'd be happy to address those.
Hi, Dawn. You have a question in the chat box. Just to reiterate, if you could just reiterate the dates, you know, just by which agencies need to switch over to HTML.
Sure, no problem. Let me do this real quick. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. Hold on just a second. Okay. This right here is what the main web page for the Silverlight application looks like. And programs that are still using this application have until June 30 to switch to the HTML application. Okay? So if you know of a program that has not begun that transition, please have them contact me or tech support to assist them in making that transition.
And that's June 2018.
Yes, so June 30, 2018. So any programs that are, say, continuing to use Silverlight up until June 30, if they have not prepared to transition to HTML, if they attempt to go to this web address for the Silverlight application on July 1, they will not have access to the application starting July 1, 2018. It will auto-direct to, in other words, it will automatically redirect the user to the HTML application. Okay, so we did send out a global announcement. Hopefully everyone received that global announcement. And if not, we can provide a copy of that for you. Let me go back to the website for just a minute. Here, we're on system compatibility. I may go back to that in just a second. But here on the sidebar, HTML version, there's a transitioning to HTML facts. I would go ahead and download a copy of that. That is very helpful to share in your CASAS implementation training session. So I would start dropping word in your sessions about any programs that are currently using CASAS eTest Online to transition to HTML, and you can bring reference to this document here. So it gives the brief understanding of why we're transitioning, how to switch from the two applications, what are the system requirements, and how do I get started. And in a nutshell, in getting started, it's as simple as having testing sessions available in the new application, and on the computers directing the user to the new HTML URL. It's as simple as that. So there's not a lot of setup. Our technology support team is available to assist by applying default templates with sessions, so that takes away that learning curve in how to configure and set up testing sessions in the new HTML application. We will go ahead and, if the program asks, if they send a request to our technology support team to request for us to apply a default set of instructional program templates with set of sessions, we will go ahead and do that. And then we can work together with them further to further customize those sessions. Here on this web page, this gives you an overview of the purpose of those default templates and sessions. And we feel very strongly about standardized testing and standardized testing practices across all site locations and in all labs at each site location. And with the new HTML application, you have the highest assurance of maintaining and manage standardization in that manner, standardized testing practices, and test delivery, as well as the assurance that these templates and sessions will collect all data required for accountability. Okay. I don't want to get too sidetracked here because of time. Well, actually, I think we're doing okay on time. Maybe I'll just continue discussion on this if that's okay. On the testing sessions by instructional program, you see here we have just the general types of instructional programs majority of organizations offer. And the pre-configured templates will deliver, as you can see, the various types of test series per instructional program. And so programs should know that they are free to customize the templates as well as add additional sessions sharing the same template. This helps your local program control standardization. And then some general reminders about sessions. Once the sessions are applied, programs are ready to begin testing right then and there. They do not need to register their testing stations again. Testing stations that have already been registered in the older Silverlight application are automatically available in the new the new HTML application. Here. And then here is just kind of a brief description: process or intake pretest, progress post-test session, retest session, returning session, registration session, and a practice session. So this is the set of pre-configured sessions sharing these instructional program templates that can be applied with a single click of a button to any program's online account. And we are highly encouraging programs to ask for our help in getting them started with the HTML application. And I already mentioned here, testing stations. They do not need to re-register stations. And then here are specific directions on installing the eTest Online app on Chromebooks. We will be adding the documentation for iPads soon. And then here's just the general steps for station registration across all types of devices. Okay. That there. So we've talked about pricing and ordering, features and reports, system compatibility is where we left off. That's pretty standard. So you would want to encourage programs to provide a link to this webpage to the local program's IT department so that they understand the system requirements. And it's pretty straightforward there. And then just one other note on system compatibility, if they're sharing this with their IT department, if the IT manages computer desktops, laptops, Chromebooks, or iPads, they may want to reapply desktop shortcuts directing to the HTML application. Okay. So your IT involvement is actually very minimal. Chances are the computers or the machines are already meet these minimum system requirements, and so it's pretty straightforward. Now let's go to facility verification. And what this is facility verification is designed for one individual representing your program to enroll in, complete, and submit an online implementation agreement. And what that agreement does is indicates to CASAS, or identifies to CASAS a program intending to implement the online system, so identifies the name and the physical location of that program, the main point of contact for that program, and then identifying an individual within that program who will be tasked with managing that program's online data. That is the initial information that CASAS gathers from programs to do the initial setup of the account in the CASAS online system. We establish the account name based on the name given to us on the implementation agreement. We establish the main point of contact from that agreement, as well as we set up the first user account for the data manager for that program's online account, or account in the CASAS online system. And it is that data manager that we issue those initial login credentials for a program to access their online account. And that data manager has the highest level of access for their implementation, whether it be basic or enhanced. And that data manager then can go about the task of granting other staff members access to TOPS Pro Enterprise Online and or CASAS eTest Online. Access to TOPS Pro, granting staff access to TOPS Pro Enterprise Online does not require CASAS eTest Online coordinator or proctor certification. Local programs can grant any staff member access to TOPS Pro Enterprise Online. It also includes a staff member is not required to have completed CASAS implementation training to a staff member. So local programs have full control over who they allow access to their data via TOPS Pro Enterprise Online. Now, access, well, let's see, let me just finish up here with facility verification. The online implementation agreement is presented in an online self-paced training module, and that's just for ease of submission. It is, if you want to call it, a mini training. and it's in the CASAS implementation category right here, online implementation agreement. It takes about 20 minutes, no more than 30 minutes to go through that information. Let's see, I don't know if I'm logged in. Let's see if I can just access that here for just a moment. Okay, so as you can see here, there's just a brief introduction, and then it just simply addresses the physical, technical, and testing setup of an assessment center or a testing center. And then so that covers the test site requirements, and then the test site responsibilities, such as how to handle situations and emergencies, testing accommodations, and compliance. Then there simply goes into the training completion. So this is important. The test site requirements and test site responsibilities gives local programs seeking to implement the CASAS online system, primarily CASAS eTest Online in this context, so that they understand what CASAS expects as the ideal testing environment for web-based testing. And so only one individual representing a program needs to complete this. Of course, more individuals from a local program are welcome to go through this mini module, but only one individual actually needs to submit the online implementation agreement. And generally, it should be a person who understands where that local program plans to incorporate or implement CASAS eTest Online. So we covered facility verification. Now that brings us down to staff preparedness. And staff preparedness can involve up to 3 types of training. So any staff member new to using CASAS results, interpreting results, should enroll in and complete CASAS implementation training. That is offered in an online self-paced training module, as well as, it's offered face-to-face. Either method of delivery is acceptable. Staff responsible for online testing management should enroll in and complete coordinator certification. And staff who are only involved with online test administration need only complete proctor certification. It is not necessary that every person using the CASAS online system, or in this context, CASAS eTest Online, not everyone needs to complete both coordinator and proctor certification, or as well as CASAS implementation training. So it depends on the role of an individual within a local program. So it's important that the program identify staff accordingly. Coordinator certification. Now, this doesn't mean that someone isn't a coordinator at a local program. Of course, you have program coordinators. But in the context of CASAS eTest Online, a CASAS eTest, or an individual with coordinator access to CASAS eTest Online has the ability to add, update, and delete testing sessions. Okay, as well as unregistered testing stations. So you want to pick and choose, or just a select few who will assume the role of an eTest online coordinator. And then the coordinator then is responsible for overseeing registration of testing stations, as well as overseeing the setup of testing sessions. Once testing stations are registered and testing stations are available, the coordinator is essentially done their prep and is ready for proctors then to begin administering web-based tests. And of course, the coordinators are responsible for overseeing management of their proctors, as well as making sure that their proctors are following the appropriate testing guidelines for web-based testing. So are there any questions, folks, about facility verification or staff preparedness with these 4 different types of training that I've mentioned? The online implementation agreement, CASAS implementation training, coordinator certification, and proctor certification. Any questions about those trainings? Okay, I'll take that as no. So that brings us then to the going live checklist here. And this is essentially what programs would want to follow and check off to help them know where they are throughout this implementation process. Now, the steps listed on this checklist may be coordinated simultaneously and are not sequential prerequisites. Okay, so for example, number 1 actually is optional. Test driving the simulation server is optional. And let me hop over here. Well, let's see. I don't want to lose my spot. I'll just hop just a minute. Here's steps to access the CASAS online system. That's this is a document that uses our fictitious school called Rolling Hills Adult School with a fictional database that is set up and is accessible by individuals who log in with these types of credentials. We have examples of administrator logins, coordinator logins, proctor logins, and teacher logins with just generic passwords here. So for those of you on the webinar today, you are more than welcome to give this a try to access the Rolling Hills Adult School simulation server. This is accessible 24/7. The database refreshes nightly, so you can't break it. You can't break Rolling Hills. The database is refreshed to a new database at the start of every day. Now that is optional. That is not a required prerequisite to implementing CASAS eTest Online. Next is system compatibility, and we talked about that. So you would want a local program to confirm that their machines are compatible, with the CASAS Online system. And this link takes you directly to this right here, system compatibility. And then for someone to submit an online implementation agreement, order online test administration, in other words, WTUs, and then prepare the staff for either coordinator or proctor.
What meeting?
As well as process implementation.
Came over and said you're not at the meeting. I'm not at the meeting.
Once they have completed,
Oh yeah, I signed up for it, but I got this
2
CASAS
through 5.
webinar, so I overdid.
Is that what you're listening to now?
Oh, that's okay.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, I saw that and I signed up for it, but then I got my.
His Sandy came over, but I wasn't included on.
Okay. All right. I've muted Brian. If anyone hears Brian, sees Brian in the chat and he can't talk, it's because I muted him. So just let me know I need to unmute him. Okay. So essentially programs, this is in a nutshell here, steps 2 through 5. So to implement the CASAS online system. Once a program can officially check all of those boxes there, then they would send a request for live online testing. They would send that request to tech support. And this is where then CASAS on our end, we pick up the pieces to the puzzle and put it together and establish a local programs online account. And then local programs are free then to, once they have access, they can register their station, they can create testing sessions or ask us to go ahead and apply the default set to get them, to give them a head start. And then they can begin administering tests. There is a copy of this Going Live checklist for programs to download. So I would encourage you to go ahead and grab a copy of this. Some of the detailed information that I've been sharing with you today comes directly from this document, as you can see here. So it kind of goes through those different areas that I was referring to. And then again, there's a copy at the end for a physical copy to actually check off through that process. So that's it in a nutshell, folks. Do you have, you're pretty quiet there. What questions come to mind, you know, as you've been conducting your training, and questions that you've heard from the field? Okay. In your meeting control panel, you should see a materials section. If you expand that materials section, and I believe this access to these links for all the materials will be automatically sent to you through the Citrix online system. But I opted to schedule this meeting as well as the one next week, which will be essentially a repeat of today's session. All of these materials that are accessible through the materials section on your GoToTraining meeting panel are resources that I share and use when I'm working with programs implementing the CASAS online system. So you have direct access to a lot of the training forth there.
Dawn, do you think you can point out exactly where the materials section is?
Oh, yeah, well, I can't, on my meeting control panel, it won't display for you. You mean on the website, or?
Is it in the open meeting?
It's the meeting control panel. When you first signed into this meeting, you were presented, and it may have just automatically collapsed during the meeting, but it's the meeting where you see the list of attendees.
Mm-hmm.
And there should be a section that says materials. You can expand that and see all of the links that go to those materials. Sorry, I put up the poll probably prematurely. I probably could have taken a snapshot of mine and displayed it to show you. But I want to keep the poll open to give everyone the opportunity to respond. So any questions about going live with CASAS Online? What are your thoughts, folks, about you know how that you conduct training, face-to-face training for CASAS implementation training, and there are very valuable components of that training. But what are your thoughts of perhaps in the future developing a CASAS online implementation, say face-to-face training, that would incorporate some of the sections or components of the standard CASAS implementation training, but then also covering such as these steps like these, so programs understand how to implement the CASAS online system. And the reason why I bring that up for discussion and input is that, you know, for example, a program new to CASAS and implementing, going straight to web-based testing, they don't necessarily need to understand the mechanics of converting raw score to scale score, because that is automatically done through the CASAS online system, as well as there is no need reference a list to find out what pretest form to administer, or what is the post-test, what is the appropriate post-test form level for an individual. The CASAS e-test application is fully automated to present the appropriate tests to students at any given time. So you can see where the face-to-face training, there are sections that would not be necessary if the primary focus was CASAS online implementation. So I would welcome some feedback, you know, about that. And yes, Pam, thank you for the training. Definitely needs to be updated to include e-test online. I agree, because if you are addressing an audience that you know majority of folks are planning to go web-based testing, then I wouldn't say it's a waste of time to go through, you know, converting raw scores to scaled score and determining the pretest and the post-test. You know, to some extent, it's good to have that background understanding, or the behind the scenes mechanics, if you want to call it. But it's not necessary and we all know that local programs many of them function with limited resources, limited time. And so adopting a fully automated online system is very beneficial. All right, folks. Any questions, comments? Does anyone want to share their experience in using, perhaps if you're working at a local program at the moment, your experience in using CASAS e-test online, or perhaps reflecting back to when you were transitioning from paper to web-based testing? Would anyone like to share? Oops, let's see, Brian, I think Brian is, hold on, Brian, let me unmute you. I think I still have you muted. Give me 1 second here. Okay, Brian, I don't know if you were trying to talk. I had muted you earlier, so feel free to chime in. Okay, folks. Well, if there doesn't appear to be any questions, so I guess we'll go ahead and sign off. Adriana, do you see any other questions in chat that can be addressed before we sign off?
No, and thank you so much, Dawn, for taking the time to present this today.
You're welcome, and thank you everyone for joining. We appreciate your time.